took over. So the large watershed provides lots of nutrients. The zebra mussels made the water crystal clear. And when milfoil came in, it just rapidly took over the lake. So if you take a look at the charts on the right, the top right shows the land use of our watershed. A significant part of it is agriculture. That big gray area is all agriculture. And then the bottom chart on the right shows a survey done by SUNY ESF students. In 2015, they published their findings. And you see how milfoil went in 2012 from being sampled at less than 10% of spots in the lake to over 70% of spots in the lake by 2014. So it really just took over the lake. And the worst part was the litter. We call it litter. It's the large, dense mats of broken milfoil from boaters and other lake users. And frankly, that's what really drove us to action. The lake became unusable, as you can see in that graph or that image. We hauled it out. People around the lake were hauling it out by the truckloads, literally, and taking it off to the organic farm. So by the fall of 2014, kind of based on that chart of the takeover of the milfoil, we knew that we needed to do something. And we partnered with Soil and Water to pursue an herbicide treatment with the only product available to use in District 7, which was Renovate. Now, we put our application in, and part of what you have to do, particularly for us, because we have an outflow, the Tiofneoga River, we have to model how far the herbicide would flow downstream. And Soil and Water did a model, and they thought it might go down to Marathon maybe. The DEC biologists did their own model and concluded that it would go down to at least Binghamton and probably further, but they didn't have dominion over south of the border. So we were going to have to notify every riparian owner in that area, and we were going to have to resolve any issues that they might have. So we quickly concluded that the permit wasn't feasible. I mean, just the postage for the notification was going to be more than we were budgeting to spend on the herbicide treatment. As part of that process, DEC informed us that we needed an up-to-date lake management plan to pursue further permits. So at that point, we launched a revision of the lake management plan. The original plan was developed by Soil and Water in 1996 and really hadn't been touched. In fact, most of us didn't even know that it existed. The society had kind of gone into hiatus, as Gary said, in the late 90s and was revived in the late aughts. And so we got a copy of it from Soil and Water. We formed a committee of all stakeholders in 2016 to update our plan. And our goal was to get going on treatment. And that was part of why we didn't participate with the other 3 Kettle Lakes in the lake management plan program from SUNY Oneonta. So we identified key goals and tools to use, and we published the plan and briefed the stakeholders in 2017. You can see on the right the committee that was part of the creation process. And our goals that came out of that were 3: reduce sediment and sedimentation in the lake, manage aquatic vegetation, including invasives, and establish an active and ongoing management process. And on the right are the tools that we identified as the ones to focus in on. We considered other tools to use, but this is where we ended up. So during 2015 to 2018, if you'll recall, we weren't able to use herbicides, so we started working on using some other tools. We procured a bunch of benthic barriers and deployed them. We concluded that given the scale of the variable leaf milfoil problem, that they weren't going to be particularly effective. We did some research on hand harvesting, identified several lakes that had successful hand harvesting programs. Now, granted, in the first 2 or 3 years of hand harvesting, it's very expensive, but subsequently they were able to beat it back and get the cost down very low. We did a proof of concept of it and we're working on creating a model for that in 2017. We developed a new bathymetric map and core samples in support of dredging. We explored an aeration program. There's some scientific work out of Wisconsin that aeration can reduce sedimentation. And by reducing the sedimentation, you reduce the area that the milfoil can grow in. We supported and participated with Kofokla, other lakes in the NIFWIF watershed study. We also helped write a grant proposal to bring in the boat steward program, and subsequently got the add-on grant to install the boat cleaning station. And we did a bunch of outreach programs, the seminars for the septic systems and a subsidy program for that, development of shorescaping guidelines with soil and water. We supported the macrophyte survey, and as we mentioned earlier, we launched our Happy Hour Society, because if you can't solve the weed problem, then drink. But in 2018, we learned that Navigate was now available to treat variable leaf milfoil, and that the notification area was going to be much more reasonable, basically from the dam down to Yeaman Park in Cortland. And so in the winter of 2018 and 19, we organized a treatment campaign, and we successfully raised about $18,000 from the residents, plus money from the county. And we conducted our first treatment in May 2019 with good success. We decided to follow that up with another round of treatments in 2019. But this time we had a new herbicide that was available to us. In fact, Procellicore was listed by DEC the day that we put our application in 2019 to treat with 2,4-D. But we chose to stick with the 2,4-D then because Procellicore was still new in New York State. There weren't a lot of people with experience in New York State with it, and we decided to go with the tried and true. But in 2020, we did treat with Procellicore. We expanded our target to include starry stonewort, and we treated that with Captain XTR. We worked a little bit with the Starry Stonewort Collaborative out of the Finger Lakes Institute. They have said to us that we're the only lake in New York that they're aware of that is treating starry stonewort. We'll be doing a webinar on our results to date for the Starry Stonewort Collaborative later in June, and we'll publish that. One thing that we noticed as we went out on the water in 2020 was that the residual impact from the 2019 treatment was almost 100%. We saw almost no recovery of the milfoil in the areas that were treated in 2019. And this gives us some pretty good hope that we're going to really get milfoil knocked back. We installed the boat decontamination station at Dwyer Park and had several hundred people use that. And we supported a new drawdown permit for the dam. Again, it's not clear that the drawdown permit as it's manifest for Little York Lake has any impact on weed control. We're only allowed to draw it down about 18 inches to 2 feet. But we would probably need to be able to draw it down 5 or 6 feet for it to have a significant impact on shoreline weeds. But now we think we're on the edge of milfoil control. This year, our treatment plan is focused in on areas that we feel are seeding the lake on 2 of the inflows, on the Teofniaga River inflow from Goodale and on the stream inflow from Green Lake. There is no milfoil in Green Lake, but the stream has been infested up to the footbridge. And so kayakers, as they put in there at the mouth of the stream, are breaking it off and it's floating down into the lake. So we're probably going to have a hand pull program at that point. We may put some benthic barriers in the mouth where the kayakers launch. We're going to decide that as we get out in the water later this month. We're going to do an additional starry stonewort treatment with the assessment of residual benefits from our 2020 treatment. We don't have a lot of confidence that there's going to be much in the way of residual benefit from the starry stonewort treatment. Everything that we've heard from the folks at the Starry Stonewort Collaborative says it just bounces right back. So, this is treating starry stonewort is more like mowing your lawn. You're going to have to do it every year and pick your places and let the rest go wild. We're also going to be treating small targeted areas of pondweed that have expanded into the variable leaf milfoil areas. This has really kind of congested some motoring activities and so forth. Again, it's a native species, so we want to be cautious about it. We're not trying to turn Little York Lake into a bathtub, but on the other hand, we need to kind of manage the area so that we do have boat access to the channel. So that's where we are with our treatment and our treatment plan. And so we've had a bunch of learnings out of this, as you can imagine. We've having a plan and working the plan is key. And building a community is the other key. We've been raising between $15,000 and $20,000 per year from our lake residents and from a small number of interested community residents over the last 3 years. So that comes from them being dedicated to the lake first, and secondly, seeing some results and seeing some benefit. I can just say that the litter from the milfoil was completely clogging the lake and making it almost unusable, and we've almost completely beat that back. And so people are much more willing to put in a couple $100 when they can see a result, and also when they know their neighbors and they're talking a little bit, as opposed to just kind of waving hi over the fence. The permit cycle for DEC is problematic, and I mean this isn't anything to do with DEC being in any way not supportive. It's just the reality of the situation. You have to create a treatment plan in the winter because you need to submit your permit application in the spring before anything grows in order to get it processed. By the time you get the permit approved, we got our permits approved and things are just starting to grow in the lake. We'll probably start surveying the lake in the next couple of weeks and assessing where we really want to treat, but we're constrained to treating only in the areas that we applied for a permit to treat. And so we can adjust within that area. This year we did, we learned that we needed to apply for the maximum area that we thought we might want to treat, and now we're going to trim it back and treat areas within that, which is perfectly kosher within the DEC guidelines. But it's something that you need to think about. One of the things that we're going to be focusing in on this year also is paying much more attention to mapping out exactly where beds of different plants are. We had a great start last year with the macrophyte survey that was done by Soil and Water, and we're going to be building on that this year with some additional monitoring and rake tosses. When we first started fundraising for our treatments, we focused our fundraising on the property holders that were next to the treatment area. And what we discovered was that really, in our case, where we're treating for the milfoil, every lake holder or every stakeholder on the lake benefited. And so we've moved to a program where we're asking everybody to contribute the same amount, regardless of how big their waterfront is or whether their area is getting treated or not. We're just saying everybody benefits. You can see the benefit, put in some money. And I guess the final thing I would say is be prepared for unintended consequences. Certainly, the expansion of the pondweed was not something that we didn't expect, but we weren't sure exactly how it would manifest itself. And it caused some issues for us last summer. We're going to try and deal with it a little bit, but we're also kind of holding our breath a little bit to see what happens as we beat back the milfoil. What else comes in? But that's where we are with our lake treatment. And before I take questions, I just want to thank all of our a bunch of partners. We've had a lot of great support. Partnering, COFOCLA has been a key benefit for us, helping. we think we contributed, but having the other 3 lakes to lean on to write grants and get the benefit of those grants, I don't think we could have done some of those things just as Little York Lake Preservation Society. Hillary Mosier at the Finger Lakes Prism and her team have helped us a lot, as well as Nancy Miller at NYSPOLA, Kim Schultz at ESF, the Cortland County, and Amanda Barber at Soil and Water have been just fantastic. And we've benefited as well from the good work of the Environmental Finance Center at Syracuse University. So with that, Turkey, we'd like to open it up for questions.
I have to find I have so many things on my screen, I couldn't find my unmute button. Okay, that was great. Thank you, Don. That's really clear and so helpful. And I know many of our associations are looking to use an herbicide application because of the density of the weeds. So this is a question. I'm going to the chats first from Ira Goldman, and I will read the whole thing. So you can respond. An earlier slide said that starry stonewort was in the lake for many years. Why did you recently decide to control it? And was its impact not significant, or was the variable leaf milfoil much worse until it was controlled?
So yeah, so it's a good question. So the starry stonewort, frankly, was from our recollection, our group recollection, was contained in some relatively small areas until the early 2000s. So we're not quite sure what caused it to start to expand. Could have been, some of the changes in the climate that caused it. Could have been the milfoil beating back some of its competitors, some of its natural competition. We're not quite sure what caused it, but it clearly became much worse over the last 4 or 5 years. And once we had some success with the milfoil, we thought, well, let's take a look and see if there's anything we can do with starry stonewort. We treated last year's, or we viewed last year's treatment as a pilot program. We're going to continue it this year, or we think we're going to continue it this year, and so we applied for a permit, but we may, if we get on the water later this summer and decide there's no residual value or it's not coming back as much, we may cut back or eliminate that treatment. So, I think the jury's still very much out on starry stonewort and continuing treatment.
Yeah, that's the problem. When you apply for the permits, you have to do it in January for May. And so you're in September, we go out and try to assess the lake where we've had problems and where the weeds are growing still. And then we have to submit the application, and then we get the results back. And then we go back out in May and decide, well, it didn't grow as much as we thought it was going to. So that's problematic.
Yeah, or our treatment has better residual value than we thought, or whatever, right? So yeah.
That's the problem with that.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think so. And thank you for that response. And I do want folks to know that just on the side here, the aquatic invasive species regulations are coming up for renewal in May. So we would really like you all to, I'm speaking as a NYSPOLA person right now, send in your concerns about controlling of aquatic invasive species. And Don, you could absolutely put that on the permitting process as a concern.
Sure.
So that would be great. Okay.
Yep, that's a good idea. We will do that.
Thank you. So this is from Colleen Sawatsky. What was the average contribution per homeowner? What other funding sources did you have? And what was the average cost per year? And how was the town involved?
So average numbers are a little bit difficult because in the sense that we changed our model. But as I mentioned, I mean, we've been spending in the range of $15,000 to $17,000 a year. This will be the 3rd year that we'll be in that range. And we're getting essentially the same support that we got from Soil and Water for the harvesting machine, but now being directed to the herbicide treatment. So kind of the net contribution to the association is roughly the same, maybe a little bit higher. You know, they're anxious to have the boat launch area controlled and cleaned, even probably more so than we are. You know, to a degree, if the boat launch isn't particularly functional, that keeps people from bringing in more invasives. But so we're looking at kind of on an ongoing basis, somewhere between 130 and 150 bucks per property to fund our efforts, kind of in round numbers. And then I think so. You wanted to know average per homeowner and kind of what we were spending. Oh, so we only got money from Soil and Water, and the town has not been involved.
Okay.
And the reason, one thing I might add too, they were harvesting using the weed cutter to come in as they do in Song and Tully and like that type of stuff. But the problem with that is if they cannot catch everything that is cut, and if they don't, it can go down and reseed and start again. That's the downside of, you know, the cutting part of it.
Well, in fact, that may have accelerated the spread of
milfoil. I think it did
during the 2010 to 2014.
And that too is timing when you can catch the weed harvester. So
yeah, exactly.
Thank you. That's all very good. There's a lot of different questions here. I'm going to ask the next one that came up. This is about the Happy Hour Society. They just want to know if there's drinking, does the association have insurance for that kind of event?
So there are two things. And I should probably be a little more clear in my language on this. But if Little York hosts a picnic, then we do get insurance for that. The Happy Hour Society is a group of friends that are a private Facebook group that get together and have cocktail hours. And we encouraged it and promoted it, but it is not a part of the Little York Lake Preservation Society. It's not an official function. So people have cocktail hours at their homes, and their neighbors come over and we kibitz and we talk sometimes about lake stuff, but mostly about non-lake stuff. And we promote it on our Facebook group. So in that sense, we're not insuring it.
So just a sort of an informal ad hoc social group.
It's just social neighbors socializing.
Okay. Now there's a couple of good questions here. I'm going to hold off, but I do want to say that we're going to get back. I'm going to ask Don and Gary to write and Kim to write to those specifically about the boat launch and how that was how that came together.
The boat launch?
Yeah, the boat, I'm sorry, the boat decontamination station at the boat launch.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, well, I'm trying to remember the year. I guess in 2018, no,
that sounds right.
2017, we applied, we put in the application for the boat steward program. And we wanted to get a boat wash station, but they said you have to have a boat steward program that's operational for 2 or 3 years before you can get a grant for a boat station. So we did. We got the boat stewards. We got them all fired up and trained. We got them trained by the Finger Lakes Institute reluctantly. No, not really. No, they did it. It was an interesting expansion and learning on their part. And then when the next round of grants came out, we put one in. Now we ended up with a CD3 station. I think that this is the more interesting part of that story, which is, we've talked about a boat wash station, and frankly, we didn't think that we had the infrastructure or the capacity to support it, because you need pressurized hot water to run a true boat wash station. And so, we would have had to, install all kinds of gear, up at Dwyer Park, and we would have had to man it, and so on and so forth. And it just wasn't clear that was in our capacity. And then we discovered, I think it was at Nice Fola, this CD3 station, which is basically a set of tools to help boaters clean their boats more effectively, including a shop vac kind of function. And then the other piece of it is that each of the tools has a monitor on it, and it records when the tool is used. So you can see how much usage you have of it. You can also provide some educational material through a hotspot at the boat station. We're going to be expanding that function this year. And so, you know, it was used a fair amount last year. We did see a fair amount of material removed from boats. It's obviously not 100%. I don't know. I'm sure that no boat station does 100% of the traffic that comes through. But, you know, I think for our first year, we were pretty pleased with it.
Yeah, thanks, Don. There's a couple questions from Tully Lake, and so I'll group them together. One question asks if you've had harmful algal blooms since the treatments. The second is around starry stonewort, and is it the same as Cara, which is also in Tully Lake?
You want to talk?
We have had harmful algae bloom. We did this last year, but the treatment, we hadn't even done the treatment at that point. I don't believe we had.
And the other thing was we weren't treating in that area. So,
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the treatment did not have an impact on the harmful algae bloom. It could have left more nutrients in the water, and you know, so on and so forth. You know, but I counter to that, we have had harmful algae blooms in that same location years ago. So again, you know, it's not clear that there's a correlation between those two. We are, on the other hand, going to be implementing, and much like Song Lake did, a harmful algae bloom monitoring program, and trying to, you know, make sure that if we do have another bloom, that people are aware of it. And so that's again, kind of one of the benefits of being part of CoFolklo. We were able to lean on Song Lake's experience and get some good input from them on that. And then the Cara starry stonewort, no, they're different. And don't ask me to identify the two, but they are different. Actually, David Carr was on. I guess David Carr is still on. Maybe David, can you talk to that? David's the head of the Starry Stonewort Collaborative.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm manage a collaborative out of Finger Lakes Institute, Finger Lakes Prism. Yeah, I'm not an expert either, but I've been learning now for the last 2 years, trial by fire. Cara and starry stonewort are very similar looking, and they can be very hard to identify separately. But I'll tell you what works best for me, and when I've done it is Cara in this region, a lot of it's known as muskgrass. It's a common name for probably more than one species of Cara, but if you squeeze the stem or the stem-like, because we're talking about macroalgae, technically they don't have stems, but if you squeeze it and pop it, it's gonna have a musky odor. Some people say it smells like skunk, some people say it smells like old garlic. And if it stinks like that, it's not starry stonewort, and it's the native Cara, and you're good to go. On the other side, of course, and you probably know this, the starry stonewort's name, if you do see the little star-shaped bulbils that are down in the sediment, then there's no questions. Nothing else has those, so that's starry stonewort. But they're different families. There's the Cara family and the Nitella family. Starry stonewort is Latin name is Nidolopsis obtusa. So they're different families, but they are very similar looking, and they're both macroalgae. So I don't know if that helped or confused.
Oh, that was perfect. And so there you go. On a CoFolklo webinar, you get all the experts from around the country.
It's great. Thanks. Is there something, David, is there something at the PRISM website where people can go and look at the differences at least and get some of the information you just shared?
Yep, there's a couple places. You go, if you go to the PRISM website, is fingerlakesinvasives.org. We got a lot of stuff in that, thanks to Don in many respects to the website. There's all sorts of wonderful information on there, so you can look around for fact sheets and things like that. We also have my program, the Starry Stonewort Collaborative, we have starrystonewort.org. And we have a bunch of resources there. We also, we put up a story map, it's called. I don't know if you've seen these story maps on starrystonewort.org. It's up on the top level. You can see the story map drop down, and the young guy in my office, Mike Kasten, did a beautiful job on it. And part of that story map, he built in some identification, you know, like photos of lookalike species and things like that. So that's another resource you can look at. Trying to think.
Put those in the chat. So if somebody wants to copy those down, they're welcome to do. I spelled stonewort wrong though. Sorry. The
autocorrect. Blame it on the autocorrect.
Okay. You know, I do want to ask. I know we're out of time, but Don, one of the questions I had was regarding the Procellicore. I had heard that, and actually talking with some people in the field who do now apply Procellicore, that one of the other advantages to this, other than targeting species, which is a huge advantage, but the other is the cost. And that part of that is because of the rate that it's applied at, which is so much lower, like parts per billion rather than parts per million, which also reduces the rate of the application rate and cost. Do you have any info on that?
The effective cost for you to treat is probably going to be not dramatically different than if you were treating with 2,4-D. So it's not that Procellicore is going to be way cheaper. I mean, the good news is it's a new chemical and it's not more expensive. You know, I mean, it's more expensive by the pounds, but it's cheap, but you use a lot less of it. And so, you know, it kind of washes out. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper.
All right, well, that's good to hear.
This is this year.
Oh,
this year right here.
Yeah, well, so you have it compared to 2,4-D.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, Turkey, I'll send you the what it costs us to treat with 2,4-D versus Procellicore, and you can see kind of what I'm saying, and feel free to share it.
Okay, thank you.
And the Procellicore, the good thing is that it dissipates downstream very quickly. I mean, I mean, virtually 2-3 days, and it's really pretty much gone. So it's not a residual thing.
Yeah, we had much lower concerns about downstream effects. Now, again, I mean, it depends on your body of water if you have a downstream problem. But we didn't. That was another benefit for us. It's kind of lighter impact on the environment.
Yeah.
You know, all of those good things. The cost wasn't the big thing, though.
And the problem is too, is it depends on your depth of water and all that type of stuff too, is how much they have to put in because of your depth. So it's very, it's very hard to figure that out, but we'll give you what we have for sure.
Well, we're out of time, and it was really a wonderful presentation. And I wonder if you just go to that last slide for us. I just want to take a minute to thank all our presenters. This has been really wonderful to have all 4 of our Kettle Lakes able to present at different times and focus on whatever they want to focus on, whatever their issues may be. So we started in February with presenters from Tully Lake, then in March, Crooked Lake, Song Lake presented in April, and Little York presented in May. I think it's the great hope of our Kettle Lakes associations to be able to do this in person and on our lakes in the near future. So, so thanks everyone. I just wanted to say that, and stay safe. Stay safe and enjoy the open water.
Exactly.
All right, any other questions? Thank you. Okay. All right, take care everyone. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.